Most people that feel like they're captive to their own life and to the circumstances that they live in are actually just a prisoner of themselves. They are the ones holding themselves captive. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but if you stick with me in this video, if you watch this video, what I'm going to talk about in this video has the potential to be absolutely liberating for you, no matter what your circumstances are, no matter what you're living through, no matter how little money you're making, how messed up your marriage is, how terrible of a father you've been. It doesn't matter. What's in this video has the potential to unlock freedom for you, to liberate you from the things that you think are holding you stuck. You see, you are the captor. So you're both imprisoned and you hold the keys. If that were true, would you want to know what I actually mean by that? Would you want to actually give this a chance? I mean, what do you have to lose? A couple of minutes of me rambling on? And if it doesn't suit you, if it doesn't set you free, then you've lost nothing. So in just a minute, I'm going to talk about the 4 ideas that I use to liberate myself, to make sure that I'm free. But before that, I want to talk about the experience of being captive so that you can relate. I can relate to you. If you're watching this, you probably clicked on this because you feel stuck in some way, or you feel held captive in some way in your life. Maybe it's you feel like you're stuck in a marriage. Maybe you have an addiction to a substance. Maybe you have a habit or a practice that isn't contributing to the life that you want. Maybe you're watching porn and you don't want to. Maybe you feel like you're an entrepreneur at heart and you want to break away and build something meaningful, but you haven't been able to do that. It's possible that you feel enslaved by the economy or the government or your parents or your kids. So what is the prison? The prison is pretty much anything that you look to as the reason why you can't do something. So this may be a physical ailment. This may be an economic ailment. This may be a relational conflict or problem. There's a million things that you can look at. And I just want you to think about that for a second. What is it that I blame for what I can't do? That's your prison. Now, we think that that thing has the key. Like, if only I would make more money, or if only she would just see the work that I do more, or maybe if that boss would just get off my back, then I would be free. And that's what I'm saying is not true. I'm saying you give that thing the power. We'll get there in just a minute. I'm jumping ahead. How do we do this? Well, like I just said, we give it the power. We take our power, in which we have to make anything of any circumstance that we want to, if we get committed to it and we get determined, and we give that thing the power. There's nothing I can do. It is what it is. I must resign to it. One of the examples that I think about this is the Nazi concentration camps. It's a very extreme example, so I am hesitant to even bring it up. But the reason that I bring it up is because of Viktor Frankl. If you know who Viktor Frankl is, he's the one who wrote A Man's Search for Meaning. And A Man's Search for Meaning is his experience going to the Nazi camps as a Jew and freeing himself in his mind, even though he was a physical prisoner that was abused in the worst, most horrific ways. He freed himself inside his mind, even in that circumstance. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Now, let's talk about what freedom is. We have to understand what freedom is before we can talk about how to get it, because there's a lot of misconceptions about freedom. Freedom is not being able to do, at least in my opinion, again, you don't have to believe me. I'm not asking you to believe any of this. I'm just asking you to think about it and what difference it could make in your life. So freedom, I believe, is not being able to do whatever you want anytime you want to. You can exercise your freedom that way. The problem with that one is it's going to result in more imprisonment. What freedom is having a clear set of boundaries and disciplines that we abide by, that are laws to us, laws of existence. And when we abide by those, it frees our minds in order to experience new things. If we want to experience freedom of mind and freedom in our lives, we must have specific practices, disciplines, restraints, parameters that we live in order to experience that freedom. So here they are. Here's the 4 attitudes that I use to recreate freedom in my life on a constant basis. So for example, there are areas in my life right now that I have imprisoned myself, that I'm holding myself captive. One of those is I got this terrible habit. I don't know if you can relate to this. I got this terrible habit of needing to watch TV to fall asleep to. For years, I avoided ever bringing a television and now it's just an iPad that's on my nightstand. I avoided that for years and years, bringing that into the bedroom because I knew that it was a trap. I knew that it was imprisonment. And I knew that if I created that habit, I would need it in order to fall asleep. So I'm currently working on this for myself. Now, I give you that example because I just want to show you how detailed this thing can be. Now, maybe your imprisonment, maybe where you're stuck, is a lot more significant than that. And that's no problem. It's actually the same principles that get us out. I wanted to read you this quote really quick before we dive into these 4 attitudes that I use to create freedom in my life. And this quote is from Frederick Douglass. He says this: "The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those they oppress." So in this example of us being our own imprisoner, our own captor, we're both the tyrant and we're the oppressed. And think about that for just a second. The limits of the tyrants are prescribed by the endurance. So what you have to say is say no more. I will not tolerate this in my life any longer. Now, you're not going to be able to change the circumstances that surround it right away. Some of them you can, some of them you won't be able to. That's okay. You don't have to change the circumstances in order to create freedom from it. See, the whole transition, the whole transformation of freedom is from being owned by something to owning it. So to begin, you're owned by the circumstance, you're owned by this thing in your life, and the transformation is to going to owning it, being in control of it. So in my example of watching television at night to fall asleep, it owns me as long as it's a habit, as long as I give into it because of the challenge that's going to be not falling asleep. If I give in and turn the TV on again, it owns me. On the flip side is I can go through the challenge, not have to turn on the television. Maybe I choose to at sometimes and sometimes I don't, but I own it. I'm in control of me in that situation because I say no longer. Now, how do I do that? The first attitude that I must adopt is to be responsible. Responsibility says this: I either tolerated or created everything that I have in my life, at least the way that I relate to it, right? So Viktor Frankl, Frederick Douglass, they couldn't have done anything about their imprisonment or their slavery. They were forced into those circumstances, but they absolutely could control the way that they related to it. Is this gonna break me or is it gonna build me? Is this gonna own me or am I gonna own it? Is it going to determine what my experience is, or am I going to determine what my experience is? That's being responsible and realizing that your contribution is the majority of the contribution to what's not working, how you're relating to it. So once you become responsible with that is I own that. It's my responsibility. I control how I relate to this. Beautiful part of that is I can choose to relate to it in a different way. I can choose to relate to it in power. I can choose to create freedom in my own mind. It doesn't have to own me. The second attitude or the second practice is to be disciplined. You must be disciplined. Once you realize what it is you're freeing yourself from, there are practices you must put in place, disciplines that you must put in place, and be willing to engage in them very regularly for an extended amount of time in order to free yourself from it. So for me, in my example of bringing the television to bed, I must be willing to be disciplined to leave the iPad out of the bedroom. I know that's what it's gonna take in order for me to go to bed without turning it on. So that discipline, that practice of putting the iPad on the kitchen table or wherever I need to put it, on the piano, before I walk into the bedroom at night and shut the door, that is the discipline that I must engage in and be fully committed to in order to find freedom. The next one is to be courageous, man. I already talked about circumstances owning our lives is the cowardly way to live. Most people don't see it that way. Most people don't even know this is a possibility to free themselves in this way. But you must live courageous. You must be willing to stand and say no more absolutely no more, regardless of the price that you will pay for doing that, because you're gonna pay prices. Just like Frederick Douglass was getting scorned by his comrades in slavery. Douglass, please, they're killing us out here. Will you please shut up? And he said, no, I will not, because this must end. There will be prices you will have to pay, and you must engage in courage over and over and over. And that's not confidence. Confidence is so different. Confidence is a phenomenon that happens that you don't get to control, I believe, but courage is a choice that you can take every single day. Finally, the attitude you must engage is gratitude. Gratitude for everything. Not just gratitude for the good things, not just gratitude for what people would call the blessings or the positive parts of your life, but gratitude for it all. Gratitude for the challenge, gratitude for the ailment, gratitude for the conflict and the fights and the low pay, the boss that doesn't respect you, and the kids that don't listen to you, and the community that doesn't embrace you. You must find a way to be grateful for it all, because it's all for your good, meaning it's all for the building of your character. Every single one of those things is going to contribute to the character that you are becoming, and you couldn't become that character without any of them. You must have every single one. So be grateful for everything that you have. With these 4 things, we're being responsible, disciplined, courageous, and grateful. You will create freedom in your life. I can guarantee this. Now, if you found some ahas in this video, if this video has helped you, if you see new possibility because of this video, please subscribe, like it. Most importantly, please comment. Tell me what these ideas have done for you. Tell me what these ideas are opening up for you. I want to have a conversation about this. I'm so tired of talking with people who are slaves to themselves, imprisoned by their own despair. So please join me in this conversation. We'll talk so much more about this on the channel. Love you. Peace.